Hello everyone, welcome back to the Greenwood and Milner Show here on Newcastle Fans TV. Today, Sam and I are joined by the chief football writer of the Times. It is a big welcome to Henry Winter. Henry, welcome to the show. First things first, what a busy season for you. You must need a break because the amount of football that you've probably seen over the last 12 months must be absolutely ridiculous.
Do you know what? The seasons where you need a break are the seasons where nothing happens and the time just sort of drags. But football's just like a soap opera with just 24-hour drama. I mean, you know, your great club, look at the season that you've had, finishing in the Champions League. And I did a couple of your last games, the Brighton game and the Leicester game. And it was just the buzz around the place. I mean, you guys, it's really interesting when you talk to clubs and local universities of clubs that are doing well, whether it's a promoted club or whether it's, you guys having this fantastic run. And they say that university applications go up like 10, 15% when they're doing well, overseas students. So, and you've got this fantastic European journey next season. So, it's going to be good.
It is going to be good. I mean, for those that don't know, you're currently in Malta with the England team. So I can imagine that's very picturesque. So unlike Johnny, I don't feel too sorry for you. But, since the last time you were on the show, Henry, what a transformation. You said you've been up a few times and just the atmosphere. What have you noticed as a kind of neutral since before the season that's just passed and to now, which has just culminated in a Champions League place?
Do you know, as an outsider who's been coming to St James's Park for 30 years, I can remember one of your players, was it Liam O'Brien, who hit a free kick and it went over at the Leazy's end and actually went through the open window of a porter cabin that was there. And you just think of it now. I still think you've got an issue with the away fans. I still think they should be behind the goals. I think you've got to play fair. I don't think necessarily it gives you necessarily a footballing advantage, but I think you guys, when you go to say like Arsenal, Spurs, or whatever, you pitch level. So that's just a tiny thing. But I found even in the most negative times, like under sort of in the Mike Ashley era, I've always found that when you go to Newcastle as a city, and this I'm speaking very much as an outsider, there's always an air of positivity. I think whether that's a Geordie trait, if you can generalise, I do think you are an upbeat support, and maybe you were sort of clinging to attractive bits of wreckage in the Mike Ashley era, and there are one or two sort of good moments, and you can focus on that. But look, I go there now, and I stand outside Shearer's, and there's a buzz there. I see the amazing people talk about big-hearted Geordies, and I go and see the guys who do amazing work at the food bank, and it's amazing how many people stop. Remember, we're living in a cost of living crisis, electricity bills, all the crazy bills, mortgages going up, all that, and there are people. I'll stand there for about 5 minutes just chatting, just getting a feel of the mood, and so many people are coming up. So the big-hearted Geordies, the buzz about the place. For me, it's still my favourite walk. I mean, I've probably been to 450, 500 stadiums around the world. It's still my favourite walk from a station. Getting off at Central, walking across the platform, weaving through a couple of hen parties. I never know whether they've just got off or just they're just going into town. I've even had a couple of invitations to join them. I said no. I mean, it looks great. Thanks very much. I hope you have a sort of happy honeymoon and a happy, wonderful married years together. But my passion is for football and it's up the road. And then that walk through, I don't know whether you call them ginnels or little alleyways or whatever, up the walk to the Grab. And you just get the sort of buzz, and the buzz seems to be even bigger. It's louder now. There's even more positivity. I understand the issues around the owners, but I think that it's kind of like a Newcastle thing. And it almost seemed like you were liberated from the Mike Ashley era. And then just walking up there, and we mentioned this earlier, the war flags. I just think that's fantastic. And there's a very sort of elegant lady who stands but her seat is just to the right of where the Times section is in the press box, and we've sort of been on nodding terms for years. And just the look of absolute delight. She's there with her daughter, and they've got the huge flag, and she's always buckling under the weight of this flag. And it's just the pride in the area, the pride in the club, the pride in the players. You see a player like Kieran Trippier, who I've known for a long time, who's come up to you, he looks immediately at home. He's been such an important player for you. He sets the tone, that passion, that drive. I'm a huge Eddie Howe fan. We've talked about this before. At Bournemouth, he overachieved with Bournemouth. And people talk about the money coming into your club now, but you look at what Eddie has done, the impact that he's had on players who are already there, whether it's Callum Wilson, who you obviously knew from Bournemouth, whether it's Sean Longstaff. Obviously, whenever he gets interviewed, he did a nice interview, I think, with Sky before one of the finals. And he just walking on one of your lovely beaches. And he came over as such an intelligent, caring person who was obviously wanted to develop as a player. And you look at how he's performed. Dan Burn, who's a centre half, he's given everything at left back. Clearly, you need a new left back, although Targett can play there. But just everything. So there's a buzz about it. Whether it's the owners, who I think they're handling things, whether the appointment of Ashworth and Darren Eales. I mean, Eales was an inspired appointment. He's one of those appointments where you might not immediately see the impact, but it will be felt throughout the club because of his personality, because of his experience, because of his intelligence, Cambridge graduate, because of the experience of the game. He played professionally. So you look at the appointments that the club have made and the recruitment. Bruno Guimaraes, what a fantastic player he is. You got 2 for the price of 1 there. I'm not surprised to see him linked with Barcelona, but I'll be amazed if he leaves. So look, you're in a very good place, and long may it continue. And your good place is now, extended to Europe.
Yeah, it still seems crazy to think about Newcastle United being in the Champions League next season and possibly going to take on the likes of the Real Madrids of the world and Borussia Dortmunds and Inter Milans. Eddie Howe deserves a lot of credit. I mean, you've rightly touched on his achievements this season. From what you've seen this season, what has impressed you most about this Eddie Howe's Newcastle United team? Because there's always that comparison with the Eddie Howe at Bournemouth and now the Eddie Howe at Newcastle. What's the biggest difference that you've seen? Well,
you've got a good defence. I mean, the back four and then Pope in goal. I mean, they're being fantastic. Botman slotted in there. Fabian Schär, I think, another one who sort of raised his game. Trippier, we know about. Dan Burn will give you everything at left back, slightly out of position. But I just enjoy watching you go forward. You just look at. I mean, okay, so talk about Eddie. What he's done with Joe Linton. I don't think many people in the game would have done that. Would have thought of doing that, taking him out of that position and putting him in a more midfield role, and how it's liberated. It's also liberated, I think, if my maths is right, liberated the number 9 shirt, which Callum's got. You look at the players out wide, and you've rotated those. You're a good team to watch. You look like a team that's further on in the development than really you are in terms of what Eddie's done. I mean, he's been fantastic. But what slightly annoys me, and this has nothing to do with sort of people on sort of media within Newcastle, but I don't think Jason Tindall gets the credit that he deserves, because people look at him and think, well, he's just there to sort of bounce around, make a noise, go and wind up the 4th official or put pressure on officials. He is so trusted by Eddie Howe. I mean, when I did a couple of interviews with Eddie in his manager's office down at Bournemouth, Jason would be there listening, and it wasn't necessarily joining in, but you could see that they were very much a double act, but like split strikers in terms of, you knew who's the main man. It's Eddie, but he trusts Jason. There's almost a sort of good cop, bad cop element to them. I've been really impressed with Eddie Howe in his press conference, the way he handled all this, what was quite rightly pressures of questions. Can you make the Champions League? Can you make the Champions League? And I thought he handled it very well, even when I think you were within touching distance and you were effectively there, whether that was after the Brighton game, was it? He was still saying we've got work to do. And I love that. He's so down to earth. I'm glad he's getting the recognition. But don't underestimate Jason Tindall. He's a good coach. I mean, he was respected enough that Bournemouth thought, well, we'll give you a try to actually do it. He may be a natural number 2, probably is, but in a partnership with Eddie, he makes Eddie an even better manager.
Yeah, Mad Dog Tindall's got a fantastic.
Mad Dog, is that what he's called?
Yes, he's got an overwhelmingly huge cult following in the Newcastle fan base now. He's great value. But
he's more than a mad dog. And if you are going to go down the mad dog sort of rhetoric line, he is pure Crufts.
Yeah. He'll
like that, by the way. He'll like that.
But you're right, and the way Eddie Howe is composed and calculated, but shows that passion, not it's just the right amount of time to make it mean something every time that he does it is brilliant. And would you agree, Henry, that the time he took out of the game, instead of, you know, he could have rushed back in, he could have took charge of Celtic, he could, if he'd have done that, if Gareth had left England, who you're with now, there's every chance he could be England manager right now. But do you think that time he took out of the game has just multiplied his managerial ability tenfold?
When we knew that Roy Hodgson was leaving in Euro 2016, even before the horrors of Nice, I was talking to the FA and saying, you should get Eddie Howe in. I just thought there was something about, you know, his destiny. And I knew when he left Bournemouth how hurt he was, because, look, managers have to be tough. You know, you look at the top managers and they've got a hard streak to them, whether it's Ferguson, Klopp's got a hard streak, Guardiola's got a hard streak. You can't just be a nice person, even though Eddie's a nice person. He's got a hard, tough streak. You look at the things that have happened to him in his career and his life. You know, he's a tough individual. But what I like about him, there's a humanity to him. There's a humility to him. He's very, very genuine. And that's why, looking back, just thinking, I mean, in a way, I'm glad he didn't get the England job. And because Newcastle is it's a match made in heaven. And you look at the other appointments there, which we've touched on, they're pretty grounded people. Like, I wrote a book on England when I was between jobs, and I wrote out Dan Ashworth. He could not have been more helpful. And Dan Ashworth he's got so much experience in the game, but he turned up for this meeting that we had with his laptop, and we were talking about sort of young players, and he didn't show what was in his magic box of tricks. But he basically said, I know everything about every young player in Europe here, because obviously he was looking at it from a national team perspective. So he will know everything about every player. You've got a fantastic brains trust with him and Eddie and Jason. And then with Darren as well. I mean, Darren, when he was at Atlanta, one of his PRs sort of said, oh, Darren will meet you sort of a couple of hours before the game and have a little wander around. I thought we were going to have a wander around inside the stadium, and, you know, the usual thing that chief executives do. They take you in to meet a sponsor, they take you in to meet a chairman, maybe you know, you go down into the dressing room area, which you can do in MLS. But he went straight out to the fans part, and he loved it. It wasn't ego. It wasn't sort of, oh, look, everyone's being nice to me. It's just, he loves that. He loves the fact that he can be in a position to bring happiness to people, not in a how wonderful am I way, but actually he's genuinely like that. I mean, I've only had probably about 3 or 4 meals with him, and there've been those meals where you haven't wanted them to end because he's such good company. And in fact, we had one meal in Atlanta, and I said, well, should we go on for somewhere else? He had to get back to his family, and I understood that. But yeah, you've got good people as well as good football people working with for you now.
I think that's so important, and I think it's very interesting to talk about Dan Ashworth and Darren Eales in particular, because the way that the hierarchy of Newcastle have identified their targets has been very, very interesting, because it's basically, we're going for our number one target, and we're going to go for a number one target, and if plan A doesn't work for a number one target, plan B for our number one target will eventually work, and you can see that on the pitch and off the pitch. Do you think that's something that Newcastle will continue to do to make the club even bigger and better? And, you know, obviously the added European adventure as well. It's going to be so fascinating to see what Newcastle United do. I
mean, the public face of the ownership and Amanda, they've always been, it's about evolution as much as revolution. It's about appointing good people. And it's then about recruiting well. They've recruited well on the sort of what we call the back office side. But they've also recruited good characters. They're no dickheads. Isak, everyone knows, you know, he's highly respected within the game as a good character as well as a good footballer. And I think that's really important, because if he wants to play centre forward and you've got someone as strong-willed as Callum Wilson is in there, particularly at Callum's stage of his career, is what, 31? Yeah. He'll want to start, and maybe they can play up front as a 2, or Isak, because he's pretty selfless, can play coming in off the flank. I just think a sign of a good character there. Bruno Guimaraes as well. I mean, he is a star, and yet he's got that often overlooked element in Brazilian players, that hard nose, I'm going to graft, I'm going to put the foot in, I'm going to win the ball. You know, as I say, you've got 2 players for the price of 1. And I love that. So you can see that Newcastle are buying good characters as well as good players.
Yeah, I mean, Bruno for me would get in any midfield in the Premier League, including treble-winning Manchester City. But to talk about Callum Wilson, who, as you said, you spent some time with very, very recently, brilliant piece in the Times today. There's a guy that now plays for, you know, the old adage of the richest club in the world, but he's come from nothing in the West Midlands. Just a brilliant character who's worked and grafted for everything he's achieved in life, and now reaping the rewards.
Left ACL, right ACL, driven him on. The things that you touched on, the experiences that he had growing up, and he's certainly not, sadly, alone in society in this, and sadly not alone in a football dressing room in this. I mean, I'm out here with England, and you hear the stories of what the players have been through. And it makes you admire them even more. And in Callum's case, the fact that there was an absentee father, his mother was, I mean, he spelt it out to me in quite graphic detail. You know, she literally had to sort of disappear at times because she was the victim of domestic abuse, not from the husband, but from another partner later on. Callum himself went into care. He was the eldest of 6, and he was looking after the others. There were food banks. So, you know, he had to grow up tough. And the area that he grew up in Coventry, I mean, I don't know if you're fans of the Specials, and Terry Hall sadly left us last year. And, you know, Ghost Town was written about Coventry, was written in the Margaret Thatcher era. It's, you know, I was like 17, 18 when that song came out. So it gave me an insight, obviously from afar, into what was going on in the ghost town of Coventry. And that's what Callum Wilson grew up with, the Specials. And I mean, he was obviously slightly younger, but that was an issue. And so we bizarrely got, not bizarrely, but because footballers are sort of multifaceted nowadays, but we got onto the subject of art, and he was talking about some of the Banksy art and the kid up with the hoodie and not throwing the hand grenades, but throwing a bunch of flowers. And Callum was talking about, a lot of that sort of echoed his childhood in terms of there was a gang element to where he grew up. So I think when you go through tough times, he did with his injuries, he did, recently with Isak effectively taking his place, the dip that so many of the England players had post World Cup physically and mentally. But he can draw on that, whether that's an anger, whether that's, he seems to me, I'm sure you guys have interviewed him, he seems to me actually quite a sort of chilled out, sort of laid back, very funny, good, great company, very eloquent, good guy. But actually, he, those top players take something that was in their past, which might be gnawing away at them anyway. But they then say, right, I have been through this in my childhood. I've been through this having to play at non-league, Kettering, Tamworth, going out on loan, fighting my way to get into the Coventry team, getting into the Bournemouth team, getting into this Newcastle team, staying now in this fantastic Newcastle. So he's got that fighting spirit. And again, it comes back to this sort of broader thing. Again, I'm looking at it from the outside, but they're good characters you've got in your team, you've got in the club, you've got in the back office, you've got obviously clearly emanating from Eddie. And I like the way that Eddie Howe left him out, rightly, because he wasn't playing well, and challenged him to go again, to sort of look inside himself and look at how well Callum finished the season for you. I mean, that run through, that great ball from Almiron against, when Almiron was actually quite deep, where we are in the press box. It's one of those great moments, actually, because you can almost feel, you can put your hand out and feel the heat of Almiron sort of, heat vapors as he goes flying past, and then he just got down the wing and he sort of laid that fantastic ball through. I actually thought he was offside, but Wilson timed it perfectly. And then the confidence with which he took that goal. And there were other moments in the game. He flicked on one ball, I think it was in the same half, but earlier, which Almiron took first time and should have scored 1-on-1. But yeah, he's a good character, good player. Again, sort of echoing what the club have got.
Another good character is Kieran Trippier, and he won Newcastle United's Player of the Season.
Good.
There's a lot of comparisons with certain players, and I'm not saying that a Roy Keane is similar to Kieran Trippier, but what I'm trying to get at is that they're almost a manager or a coach on the pitch. They just know what to do at the right time, a bit like a Steven Gerrard or John Terry. Those sort of characters, you just know that they mean business and that you have that trust when they're on the pitch that they're going to deliver what the manager, as in Eddie Howe, has asked them to do. What has impressed you most with Kieran Trippier? Because I think obviously the questions were there when he left Atletico. You know, why is he going to Newcastle? But he has just flourished at Newcastle United, and he's probably England's best right back at this minute right now. Would you tend to agree?
Certainly fit. I mean, they probably have Reece James in there. I mean, England, how many right backs do you want? Trent Alexander-Arnold, Rico Lewis is coming through. City, Kyle Walker, John Stones can play there, has played there. So yeah, he's in such a competitive part, well, the most competitive part of the England squad, right back, and yet Gareth picks him. He's picked him as a left wing back. At times, I think he's captain England from left wing back. He's just one of those natural leaders, naturally brilliant characters. I mean, he comes from quite a family full of characters. I mean, every tournament, his dad gets a fine because he puts up, the flag of St George, which is 10 times the size that Bury Council allows it to be. And we always ask Kieran this on the eve of the tournament: if you paid your dad's fine yet? He said, "Oh no, I know it's coming. I know it's coming." And I like about that, what you see with Kieran is what you get. I mean, he is. He's passionate about playing. He gives value for money. He would play through injury. Whenever I hear there's a doubt over Kieran Trippier, I go, well, he's starting it, because he's got that mentality. And, it's a great compliment that everyone's saying that he's so important for Newcastle because of his influence in the dressing room. You can see when you're in a huddle where there's a break in play, he's rallying the team. But, he's a terrific footballer as well. I mean, he's one of the best dead ball takers in the business. He can take a ball on and crossing, moving ball. He's fantastic with that. He's a fantastic defender. He's got so many footballing strengths to him, as well as that as the character of the leader. So I didn't know. I should have known that he got your Player of the Year. I thought it might have been Joe Linton or Pope or whoever, but Trippier absolutely deserves it. I actually did my team of the season, and looking back on it, I mean, I was 50-50 whether Kieran Trippier should be right back. I went with John Stones because I had to have Saliba and Diaz in there. But I probably should have had Stones at centre half, maybe drop Saliba or Diaz and got Trippier in there. That's the only one I probably look back on it because he's had a fantastic season. But yeah, again, coming back to, you've got good characters, good players.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he started it all. First name through the door post takeover, and no relegation release clause. No, just took the gamble, and it's paid off. But the mix we've got in the squad. Obviously, the transfer window's open, so there's going to be rumours flying around, and they've already started with Barella and Maddison. Actually, whilst you're away with England, have you noticed James Maddison spending a bit of time with Kieran Trippier and Callum Wilson, and just maybe shooing Harry Kane away so he doesn't go to Tottenham?
We saw, that doesn't always work, because we saw Jordan Henderson and Trent Alexander-Arnold man marking Jude Bellingham over Qatar, and the next thing he was heading to Real Madrid. I mean, Maddison is. In a way, Maddison's the type of player that you need. I know he can play off the right, and he's done that effectively for Leicester. But I mean, he's a 10, and I mean, you know better than I would. But you don't really have an obvious 10. If you want to play that formation, and he can do that. What I can say, no, I mean, the players are arriving today. I imagine Maddison will play some part against either Malta or North Macedonia, and he deserves that. What you get with Maddison is, excuse me, you're a fantastically hard worker, the skill, that ability to play the ball through. You've got someone who gives value for money. I mean, I know they get paid fortunes, but he goes out and he plays because he enjoys it. He's really matured. I think he's had a kid in the last couple of years. And, all the old days when he went into that casino, which was very ill-judged when he was injured and not reporting for England, and he went to casino. I don't think he makes those sort of mistakes anymore. That was a little bit naive, because even though he wasn't damaging his body going to casino, and I'm sure he could afford it, it was just a bad look. Particularly having sort of withdrawn from the England squad. So look, you've got another good character there. He's also got a little bit of swagger in the right sense. He's got that belief. When he comes on in big games, nothing phases him. Look, Leicester had an absolutely shocking season, but Maddison was there. He was grafting. He was getting back. He was helping out. He was, there's some players in that team, so like Yuri Tielemans, who basically just faded away. Whereas as Leicester slid towards relegation, whereas Maddison was in there fighting.
Yeah, he certainly was. He certainly was, and it will be interesting to see what happens with James Maddison. If he is going to end up in a Newcastle shirt or a Spurs shirt, we'll see what happens in the next few weeks. But Newcastle seem to mention financial fair play a lot, Henry. We've got to keep in the financial fair play constraints, and we don't want to break any rules. X, Y, and Z. So you can see what's happening at the minute with Manchester City and their 115 charges. Of course, they're obviously contesting those charges as we speak. But how important is financial fair play to Newcastle United, and what do you think realistically Newcastle United could potentially spend in this window? Because there's been so many different figures out there, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, I think the journey that you're on, and particularly being in the Champions League, I mean, that's worth, I don't know, 100 million euros pretty much immediately. So that's good in terms of you'll get bigger sponsors. I don't know whether they'll ever go naming rights on the stadium. I hope not. I mean, you guys will always call it St James's Park. But whether they will go down there, but that's the next stage. And I'm sure Darren will be looking at that in terms of the commercial monetization of Newcastle United, which again will help you in the transfer market. But again, this transfer market, I would be amazed if Newcastle went out and bought 3 or 4 big names. I just don't think that's Eddie's style. I know you've got to expand the squad because you're going into Europe, but remember finishing third in the Premier League. You know, the money you generated from that again is huge. So yeah, the whole I don't know what your transfer chest is. People say, oh, Eddie Howe's got a war chest of how much. I'm always very doubtful of that because no club would ever release details like that because it immediately compromises their ability to move in the transfer market. Why declare your hand? You know, it's like going to buy a house and say, oh, I've got £1 million to spend and the property's worth 700,000. You're going to get, it's not going to work out so well. So yeah, I just think I get the impression that they're trying to do things sensibly, and FFP is good, and there's a regulator coming in on the horizon. So yeah, look, what I know is that you'll do it sensibly.
Yeah, and as we've mentioned as well, the improvement Eddie Howe got from players that were there under Mike Ashley, Steve Bruce, even Rafa Benitez with Fabian Schär. I suppose my original question going back before I got sidetracked by the lore of James Maddison was, from what you saw towards the end of last season, I know we had a few injuries here and there, but where would you be looking to strengthen that squad if you were Eddie Howe?
I mean, a left back. I mean, you guys would know better than I would have thought a central midfielder. I think you need to sort out the saint-maximin situation. He's an entertainer. He's a fabulous player. I still think there needs to be a little bit more end product. I still think he can develop under Eddie Howe. You look at Longstaff, Joe Linton, all those players. Academy as well. You've got 1 or 2 good players who can step up again. And know that Ashworth will be all over that, and Darren Eales will be all over that, and they'll know that you've got to get all this talent. I mean, I remember I helped Michael Carrick write a book, and I remember just trying to envisage what it was like for him, age 14, 15, standing on platform 8 at Central Station, getting the train south to West Ham, and thinking of all the others who've made that journey: Shearer, Waddle eventually after playing, Gascoigne eventually after playing for you, Beardsley as well. I mean, there'll be even more. Steve Bruce, they're so, if I'm allowed to mention him with you guys, there's so many of that. It's such a rich, fertile area. You've got to keep these players who come out of these boys' clubs, this huge passion that you have for football. Get them in the Newcastle Academy, get them well coached. I know, is Sholo Amiobi, is it working as the academy? Or you've got good people in the academy. Invest more into it, because also ultimately that helps with FFP. I know the rulings we got, the post-Brexit rulings, which effectively came out yesterday, which allows clubs to go buy 4, buy in 4 young players without work permits. But still, we have to back local kids, particularly in the area that you're in. You think of the great players who've come from all around you down the years, go back to the 60s, Charlton, people like that, 50s. So yeah, but invest in the academy, which of course helps with FFP. It helps with the team. I'm sure you guys, love seeing one of your own, as we call it, stepping into the team. That's why there's a lot of respect for Longstaff. I'm a big Elliot Anderson fan. I'd like to see him get more minutes. Maybe he needs to go out on loan, although obviously Eddie rates him and sees a box-to-box midfielder in there. I've only met him once. He was down at Bristol Rovers, and he was there with his parents at a hotel, and I was seeing Joey Barton, and Joey introduced me to his parents and Elliot as well. And there's some kids you meet at a young age, you think, oh, you've got something about you, whether it's the eye contact, whether it's that confidence without the arrogance, and you can see it as a player. So look, you've got talent there that you can develop.
And I certainly hope that is the case, because again, you'd like to see one of your own do really, really well. Which not necessarily just football. You've seen Sam Fender at the weekend, who was one of our own, who just did an unbelievable couple of games. Did
you guys go to that?
I went to the Friday night show. It was absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Callum was saying when he played the Champions League music, he just got goosebumps, which footballers often don't do, particularly in the stadium, because it's like their workplace. But he was just saying he said for the first time it sank in that excuse me 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
Hi. Can you come back in 10 minutes? Okay, grazie, ciao. That was my attempt at Maltese, which the nearest place I could think of was Italy.
I was going to say it sounded very Italian.
Yeah. Which is probably why she had a slightly surprised look. She wanted to clean the room, but actually, it's probably just room service. Anyway, what were we talking about? Yeah, Sam Fender. So Callum was saying just what an amazing atmosphere to hear that Champions League music, which I think they play. Is that right? He came on to Local Hero.
Yeah. So Local Hero, then followed by the Champions League music. It was just to a T.
Yeah.
It was just every little small detail was just absolutely bang on Friday night, and I'm exactly the same on Saturday evening. But yeah, I think if anything, it just sums up where the city is right now, because it is just buzzing.
Yeah, which is good. I mean, I had a cousin, who went to university. And she loved it so much, she stayed on, and she's come back south. And whenever I see her, whenever she's particularly excited, the sing-song Geordie accent comes out again, So it just said, well, it's when I was happiest. So look, it's good to see you guys in a good place, because you've had a few dark years to get through.
Yeah, I mean, I had my daughter's birthday, which is why I couldn't go to Sam Fender. But that's fine. Third birthday parties and all that, brilliant, great fun.
Bouncy Castle, were you on the Bouncy Castle? Did you at least kick all the kids off?
No, there was no Bouncy Castle, but I did. I was playing football with my 6-year-old son and his cousins, and I was in goal, and I absolutely destroyed my right knee. But I made the save.
Good.
So it was all fine.
Are you one of these tough dads that they've really got to show that they can put the ball past you? And
I might have been in that moment.
Right.
But I made the save.
Good.
One thing I would love to see in the Champions League is Newcastle versus Dortmund. War flags versus the
yellow wall.
Would you be pestering the Times to send you out there for both games if we manage to draw them in the group stage?
Yeah, I don't have to. I think I'm too old to pester. I tend to send them the fixtures. I'll be doing a lot of Newcastle. I think one of the last I did the Barcelona. Was it the Gillespie game or the Aspria game? That was
both.
But one of my favourite ones, I think you'll correct me, I think was a UEFA Cup game against Marseille when
Drogba
then came into the press room just in his knickers with a bottle of champagne and just sprayed Les Roast Beefs, as he called us. He absolutely sprayed us. And it was quite funny because there was that half moment, it was me and sort of like that half, the whole Newcastle press back. We didn't know whether we wanted to protect our laptops or just throw our open mouths in the way of Drogba's champagne. But yeah, it will be quite an event, and it'll be all ticketed. I mean, I imagine that I can't believe how long is the waiting list to get into St James's Park now? I bet it's like 30,000, 40,000 or crazy. I don't know whether you can't really extend it anymore, can you? You can't expand the stadium anymore. You capped at 52 or whatever.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Johnny will probably be able to tell you more than I will, but I think you can was it the land behind the Gallowgate, which they're now planning on turning into a fan zone?
Yeah.
Because they brought back the land off because Mike Ashley sold it for very, very cheap. They could potentially do something with that, but it involves roads. And then I saw another thing where if you were able to rotate the pitch 90 degrees, you could build taller stands that way. Johnny, am I right?
All I do know is that there has been preliminary discussions about increasing the capacity of St James's Park, and they have got architects in place to see if they can do that. But again, I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, so I'm sure they're getting the right people to have a little look at what they can and can't do. But I suppose, it is just ridiculous demand. Like I say, at the minute you've got Newcastle take on Rangers in a pre-season game in the middle of July, and Newcastle got 8,000 tickets. They got the whole stances for I think it was Alan McGregor's testimonial, I should say.
Right.
And it didn't even go to season ticket holders. It was sold out before we even got to season ticket holders.
That's at Ibrox, is it? That's at Ibrox. Yeah. Well, I mean, your travelling support is amazing. It's like why people want you to turn up. I can remember when Sir John Hall, I always enjoyed Sir John's company, his passion for the area, his passion for the team. And I think under him, there was a suggestion they might do what Barcelona had done with the Camp Nou and dig down. But then someone pointed out, isn't the metro line, doesn't that run underneath the centre circle? So that might be, make it more convenient for getting into the ground. But sorry, this planned redevelopment, and I know that's a little car park there outside the metro. What would happen to the Strawberry Mill, more importantly?
I think it would just be about okay. Because there's enough space between what they're trying to do. But it's, again, don't quote me exactly on that, because it's just so many. There is people looking at what they can and can't do, because they probably need another 15,000, 20,000 in right now, because there is that demand straight away. But it'll be fascinating to see what happens. But just finally, Henry, while we still got you, I have to ask, what do you think the future of Newcastle United be for the next 12 months? Because we've got the Premier League fixtures have just been released, and it's not the easiest start for Newcastle. Villa at home, followed by Manchester City and Liverpool. That's your first three fixtures.
And Brighton.
And Brighton as well. So what can you see happening for Newcastle in the next 12 months? But
look, you can spin fixtures any way that you like. Sometimes it's better to play the bigger teams earlier in the season. I don't think Manchester City had a particularly good start to last season. It's slightly different this summer because the big teams aren't coming off the back of a tournament, because that was obviously in November and December. Just play them. Just absolutely play them. I mean, the noise. So sorry, you've got Villa at home, and then is City at home for you?
City away.
And Liverpool at home.
Yeah, Brighton away.
And Brighton away. Yeah, great trips. Yeah, particularly Brighton. Look, you've got to play them at some point. You'll be fit and fresh and ready. I mean, I think you mentioned Barella and Maddison. I hope, and look, Newcastle are so organised. I hope that they get those deals done early, so you can bed players in. You don't want the normal sort of Tottenham Hotspur leaving it down to the sort of the last second and then someone coming in or going out. So I think you'll be fine. I mean, you're going to have. I mean, I think next season will be a good season from a neutral's perspective, because Liverpool will be stronger. Chelsea can't be as bad. They've got a proper manager in. Tottenham, particularly, they can keep Harry Kane. Arsenal will be strong. Manchester United will be strong. You've got one or two of the other sort of, the Brightons and teams like that. Aston Villa will be threatening. So actually, it always comes down to a 2-horse race and probably 1-horse race. Manchester City will probably win. So you're aiming for those 3 Champions League places. If you finish again in the Champions League positions, have a decent run in Europe, i.e. get out the group stage, and you have another run in the Cup as you did before, that'll be a fantastic season, because it's all about direction of travel. And when you've got Eddie Howe, you've got Dan Ashworth, you've got Darren Eales, you've got Kieran Trippier, your direction of travel is secure. You're going in the right direction.
Yeah, I'd love that. I mean, I'd be happy with just consolidating European football, to be honest. But
European or Champions League? There's a huge
European for me, because
really?
Because it's just so. I'm very much the opinion of just enjoy this ride whilst we're on it, and because it's so soon into this sort of project, if you like. Like, if we can just, like you say, have a good run in the Cups, do well in the Champions League, and just still consolidate European football, because I don't want. I suppose I'll ask you this final one from me, Henry. Do you sort of not fear for Eddie Howe in a way, but if things aren't going completely swimmingly and we find ourselves sort of 10th in December or whatever, what would you fear for him a bit then? Because some owners might get a bit trigger happy, although that these lot have never seen that inclined that way for me.
Well, first, you're probably a year ahead of schedule. So, regardless of the position that you're in, you're still in December, you'll probably still be in the Champions League. So, no, I think there's sensible people around him in terms of the decision makers, in terms of Dan Ashworth, in terms of Darren Eales. Amanda's, she's ambitious, but she's quite sensible. Ruben seems a Murdad. They're quite sensible people, and they've appointed well, and they're going to leave the experts to get on with it. I mean, look at, they only have to look at Chelsea to realise what happens if you allow an owner to get involved and not bring experts in to do the recruitment. So, well, put it this way, you lot will be backing Eddie Howe. You don't turn. You take a long time to turn as supporters. Steve Bruce was different. There were various dynamics with that style of football, Sunderland, Mike Ashley connection, all that. I get that. But those have gone now. There's none of that with Eddie Howe. You've got someone who's a very good manager, a very good coach, brilliant manager, who is passionately committed to this project. I can't even call it a project. Let's call it a passion that he's committed to. I think one day Eddie Howe will manage England, but I think that's a few years down the line. I think he'll be the person after the person who succeeds Southgate. So look, Ed, put it this way: I'll come back to me in the end of December, and I will be gobsmacked if Eddie Howe's not there, probably with a new contract. Talking new contracts, sort Callum Wilson out, because he is passionate about the place. He went along to, you're talking about Sam Fender, he went along to that and he loved it. He's playing so well. He's probably got another 2 years left at the top. Just get those fantastic 2 years out of Callum.
Certainly hope so. And for everybody that is listening to this podcast, make sure you read Henry's article. Henry's interview, I should say, rather, with Callum Wilson. It goes into depth on a lot of things in terms of Callum Wilson's career. So by all means, give that a read. But Henry, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you about how good Newcastle United are and how Newcastle United will be better even in 12 months' time down the line, because it certainly seems that way. Again, thanks very much for your time.
Yeah, my pleasure. And I look forward to seeing you in Europe at the Bernabeu. Jude Bellingham's first game against you lot. How would that be?
An experience.
Yeah.
It would be an experience.
I'll tell you what, for him coming up, it'll be an experience for those players coming up to St James's Park. They'll absolutely love it. One thing I will say about it, everyone says, St James's Park is an intimidating venue. I think it's a passionate venue. I think you almost, on those big European nights, you need to just have that little bit extra edge. Because the noise is there, but if I was in a visiting player, I would be uplifted by it.
Yeah, because it's just too amazing. Yeah. I agree.
If you want intimidating, you wait till you go to Luton Town. Seriously,
that is.
I was there for the Sunderland game, and the edge that night was, if you're the winger in that game, the opposing winger in the game, Amad Diallo was drifting wide. The Luton fans were leaning over, and you knew you were in a dogfight there. So yeah, I love the atmosphere at your place, but I just think to move on, this is a difficult conversation to have, but to move on, you almost need to make it just that little bit more intimidating. It's quite euphoric at the moment, the atmosphere there, but that can lift up opposing players. Well, it hasn't happened this season because you've got you've done well at home, but and move those away fans down, because I just think that's play fair with the other clubs. That's not your responsibility. That's the club's responsibility. They're knackered by the time they get to the top. Well, I've got friends who've been up there all season. I'm talking to them as I'm driving back down the A1, dicing with all those cones around on the A1, and they're saying they're still out of breath from they can't even chant for the first 10 minutes because they're out of breath because they've climbed up to.
I know. I almost felt sorry for the Spurs fans who were leaving after 25 minutes this season. It's incredible, but yeah.
Anyway, good luck for next season, but let's stay in touch. I'm sure you'll see you at games. Or if you see me sort of chatting to the hen parties on platform 7 or 8 when I like Art from the South, drag me away and get me in the ground.
Don't want to cramp your style.
I'm a bit old for the hen parties, maybe, unless they've got a sort of grandmother who's been who's coming along for the occasion. Yeah. Anyway, good to see you. Have a great summer, guys.
Cheers,
Thank you
Henry.
very much. From myself, Jonathan Good, my co-host Sam Milner, and the chief football writer of the Times, Henry Winter. We'll see you all very soon.